The Catholics of Oz is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to episode 83 of The Catholics of Oz. The Catholics of Oz is a show where we discuss faith, culture, and what's been happening from an Aussie perspective. Whether it's synods or science, apostolates and apps, providence or productivity, you can hear it right now on The Catholics of Oz. Hello, I'm Lindsay Sant. Welcome to episode 83 of The Catholics of Oz. I am joined today by my, can we say it, brother from another mother? So I like that phrase. Lino Sabol. Lino, how are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm very good, Lizzie.
This is what happens when you spend too much time with your friends. you basically become family.
That is true. That is true. That's probably mostly with everyone else, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. How you been anyway? You going well?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Actually doing well. Gosh, like we were talking about before, the weather's as wintry as we can be, but it's been good. It's like it's going away in a sense. Yeah,
yes.
Spring is coming around the corner. Oh my goodness me! It's September almost. Yes. I think all of us need the sun and the warmth.
Yes.
Besides putting our heaters on and just trying to keep warm and put many layers of clothing that we could try.
Yeah, yes.
Try that.
The colds and flus will go away and good old hay fever.
Oh, yes.
Always something to complain
Lindsay.
about.
Yeah. Oh, no, Lindsay.
Yeah. No, it's all right. I actually finally found something that, it's a spray. I forgot which one it is. Anyway, it's like whatever max, they add like the max or whatever to it So I figure my theory is if I start now very, very soon, I'll be ready to go for any potential hay fever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Although I've got to say, I don't know, in recent years, hay fever hasn't been as bad for me as it has been in years before. Yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
So
it's
fingers
more
crossed.
Spring, isn't it, man? Spring will probably be...
spring up until it usually hits me, like in the past, it's been bad from about, sort of late September to about probably mid-November, early December. Yeah. Then it goes away, which I love.
Yep.
But yes, but just sneezing everywhere. Yeah, exactly.
Nah, spring's not very good for hay fever.
The worst thing during the pandemic part of things was when you would sneeze and everyone would look at you and you have to turn around and go, it's not COVID, stop it.
It's not COVID. It's not COVID. I'm just sneezing because it's very dusty.
No, leave me alone, I'll sneeze on you. I got plenty left. I have plenty left. You want to find out? Come here. I dare you. Go ahead. Make my day.
Make my day.
You feel lucky, punk.
Oh, wow. I don't think a lot of people will. Well,
I haven't even seen that movie.
You haven't? Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a good
Dirty Harry?
Classic Western.
Yeah.
Yes, Dirty Harry. I think Dirty Harry. I think for some reason you think about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's a different one. That's not Clint Eastwood.
I haven't seen that either.
Movie, but I've seen that. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really. What was it? 70s. Yeah. Really
sure.
70s.
Tough guy.
Really
kind
70s.
Of,
Yep. Exactly.
All right.
Yep.
Well,
it's been good. It's been good.
Oh, we should mention now. Obviously, Caroline isn't here with us, so you haven't heard her voice yet, everyone. Yeah. So Caroline's going to be taking a break for a little bit. So I know she's listening, so we better be on our best behavior, even though she's not here. So otherwise, she'll
probably tell us tomorrow.
Yeah, she'll pull us up at Mass and say,
Mass.
"Look, that last episode, got some things to fix, and I've made a checklist." I wrote some notes. Or she'll roast us when she comes back. There's that too.
Roasting. Yeah.
Good old roast.
Yeah, you should give us a good roasting. Yep.
So we're going to continue with the science segment, and we're going to do our absolute best to muddle through it. I'm kind of looking forward to today's topic. It's different and it's interesting. Yeah,
it's different. It's a bit less sort of lot of science words that we can't pronounce. Well, me, particularly
me too. Don't worry, I've got a dictionary online right here. I'm all good.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah. Let's just say, without giving away too much, there'll be a little bit to chew on in this segment about science.
Definitely a lot,
but we'll get there later. Yeah.
Yeah,
all right.
Cool.
Let's roll on. So first of all, if you're new to listening to the Catholics of Oz, welcome, first of all. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast player. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts and some positive feedback, because it helps us to reach new people. And we do check every now and then and see, and once in a while we get some nice feedback and some stars. So thank you for those. We really, really do appreciate it. We thank you so much for supporting the show. SQPN also hosts the Catholics of Oz and all of its other shows on YouTube. So just type SQPN into YouTube search. And when you find it, subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications when new episodes of the Catholics of Oz and other shows on the network are released as well. So with that in mind, Lino, let's get started and talk about faith beyond borders.
Well, I'm actually feeling rather good about this. I think we've all arrived at a very special place, eh? Oh. Spiritually, ecumenically.
How do you make somebody love you without affecting free will?
Welcome to my world, son. You come up with an answer to that one, you let me know.
Yes, I had to work very hard to pass Latin and theology.
Oh, quite. Those are, of course, the most important things.
Oh, yeah.
I'd sit this one out, Cap.
I don't see how I can.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one god, ma'am. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
So in continuing coverage of the Plenary Council, so because this is a fortnightly podcast, it might seem like we've been talking about the Plenary Council forever. So the thing is, again, I think it's really important to keep the conversation going, and for us to talk about it. So we're a little bit over the halfway mark in looking at some of the decrees of the Plenary Council, and because these are essentially shaping the next phase of the church in Australia, the next direction we go in, redirecting the energy or renewing the energy of evangelization for the church. I think it's important for us to, as I said, to talk about it, but also for us to get on board with the agenda of the church, because the agenda of the church is the agenda of Christ. It's what Christ has called us to do as missionary disciples. I'll get on my soapbox again. We were talking about that last episode, but the point is, what gets me excited about things like this is that the church is talking, and the church is talking about itself in the sense of, how do we be church today? How can we let people see the face of Christ through us? How do we make Christ visible in society today? And I think that's an important thing for us to be a part of, because as baptized, that's essentially what we're trying to do all the time, is make Christ seen, heard, known, loved, proclaimed, all those kinds of things, so that people understand that a relationship with God is possible and is important, to know our Creator who loves us and is redeeming us all the time. So with that in mind, I thought today there are 2 decrees that I'd like to chat about. So a little bit of a chat, not too long on either one, but just a couple of thoughts on each that you and I might share. So I'm going to go back. We actually skipped the 4th decree on witnessing to the equal dignity of men and women. So we were going to wait for Caroline to be on the show, but that's going to take a while now. So we thought we'd go ahead and talk about it. I'm sure if Caroline has thoughts, she'll share them with us as well. So then if we have time, because we didn't have time last time, I'd like to get on to decree number 6, which is formation and leadership for mission and ministry as well. So Lino, the first one on witnessing to the equal dignity of men and women is really about, how do baptized men and baptized women find their place in the church, and what is Christ calling them to do? So it starts off, the decree starts off by saying, God's word speaks clearly of the equal dignity of women and men. So God created humankind in his image, male and female he created them. And that's obviously a quote from Genesis 1:27, famous quote. For Christians specifically, as the letter of Galatians says, there is no longer male and female, for all of you are one in Christ Jesus. So in the church, all people receive gifts of the Holy Spirit that are mediated through baptism. And as Ephesians says, there is one faith, one baptism, one God, and one Father of all. So I might put a bit of a pause on this for a moment. And I think the key thing here to remember is that I think sometimes, and this isn't a criticism, but I think sometimes people forget that men and women are equally baptized. When we're baptized, there isn't, could be only because I've seen examples of it, and I'm not going to throw lots of things out here, and but the thing is, I've seen examples of perceptions where a woman's baptism is less than a man's. Let's put it that way, right?
That's me. Wow.
Okay. So I've seen it, and I'm not just talking about something I saw on Twitter randomly or whatever. I've seen it in the reality of my life in the church as well. And I guess what I'm getting at is I'm glad that this conversation happened at the Plenary Council, because, I mean, you can make the argument validly that there are lots of women who have roles in the church, in higher areas of the church and high administration, and that's really good. All right. And in our parishes, there are women, it's not that there are no roles for women in our parishes. However, as a lay Catholic, as an everyday Catholic who goes to church or whatever else, I've seen and heard attitudes expressed which tend to favor a man's baptism over a woman's baptism.
Oh, goodness me.
And for whatever reason that might be. Now, it could come from, I don't know, it could come from a cultural perspective. It could come from, I don't know, whatever it is. It could come from, I don't know, the stereotypes that we see on TV about superiority of men over women, blah, 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 those kinds of things. Some of the humor you might hear in the workplace, and I don't know, wherever it comes from. I think it's important, as the church has put in this document, to challenge this idea that to put it, crudely, that a woman's baptism is less than a man's, is, I guess, where I'm trying to get at. And that's,
goodness me. Yeah.
And before anyone writes to us, calm down. I'm not trying to be woke. I'm not trying to be, anything like that, or social justice warrior, an activist, or whatever you might, all the words that come out when we start talking about women or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that the full and equal participation of men and women makes us more Christ-like. It makes our church look like Christ.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's the important thing. So with that in mind, I'll move on to the next part. Actually, no, before I do that, I might just tell a bit of a quick background to this decree as well. So this decree initially was voted on the Wednesday of the Plenary Council. So the council went from Sunday to Friday, or Sunday to Saturday, or Sunday to Sunday, whatever it was. Anyway, but the voting portion of it went from Monday to Friday. So all this was, 5 years of work, listening to the people of God in Australia, collecting all those, turning them into reports. I'll tell you what, by the way, I listened to podcasts where some of the people in the background who did the reports were interviewed. They worked a lot. They did a lot of work. So kudos to them. You know what I mean? Like, well done to them, because they had to do a lot of work and discernment in order to get these reports as clearly and accurate as they possibly could to represent the voice of the people. Obviously, there was a session where a listening session, a dialogue session with delegates, and then there was the voting on that Monday to Wednesday. So on the Wednesday, this decree, the fourth decree, was voted on. So what happens is you've got the votes of the 227 people who are present, and then you've got the votes of the bishops, which are the votes that actually decide if the decree will go up or not. So the advisory votes of the lay people that are there are important, because we're getting a sense of the faith of the people. Where is the faith of the people? How are they discerning Christ, right? And the bishops, obviously, that when they vote, it's not that they're being pressured, but I mean, some people might say they are, but whatever, I don't want to get into church politics. I don't care about that. But what I'm saying is, at least from an authentic sense, what the real sense of it is getting a sense of the faith of the people and what they're discerning, what Christ is calling us to do, which was the initial question of the Plenary Council, by the way. So what happened was when the bishops voted, the majority vote was yes, affirmative to this. There were a number of votes that said no to this decree. And then there were a number of votes that said yes, but with reservation. Now, I'm not going to go through the Latin terms and what they all mean, because it's not really important as part of it. It's just a procedural thing. However, when someone votes yes, but with reservation, it was counted in the Plenary Council as a no vote. So what happened was the majority ended up being a no. So
really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So that's how it works. So rather than say neutral or something, it was just counted as a no. And what it meant was that the 70%, I think it is, majority that you need for a motion to pass, it wasn't achieved by the bishops. So from there, obviously those results were reported. By the way, all of this can be found on the Plenary Council website. You can actually see the votes, the number of votes that were done in each motion. So it's all there transparently, so you can see it. And so, basically what happened at that point is that, from what I read anyway, at least in some of the news articles and reports, is that when the results were announced, that about 70 people from the lay group, and I think possibly a couple of bishops, I could be wrong about that, stood up and sort of went to the back of the room, the conference room they were in, kind of like maybe a silent protest, I don't know, but essentially there were tears, there was emotion, people were feeling hurt by it. So the other thing I should mention is, whether a person chose in that room to remain seated or to stand, no one should be judged for the decision they made that day. Because I've seen also, now this is online commentary, in the comments, on Facebook in the pits of hell or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, where people are like, oh, those who stand are this, those who stand in their seats are that. That's really nonsensical commentary that no one should really be engaging in. People in that room who either chose to stand or remain seated made that choice for a reason, and whatever was going on in their hearts, they listened, and they were trying to listen to the Spirit in that moment. So we shouldn't judge them for the decision they made, but there was enough going on in that room that people got a sense that the motion not passing was not where this needed to end up. So Bishop Shane McKinley spoke to everyone. Apparently, was very pastoral according to the reports, and spoke very well. And there was a vote to see if this motion could basically go back to the drawing board for more renewal. So overwhelmingly, it was like a unanimous yes. All right, so everyone said yes, we need to vote on this again. So it was the motion was taken away. Feedback was collected from everyone, and the Pariti and others who were involved in the backroom, administration kind of work, did work on it. Then it was voted on again on Friday, on the last day, and the motion then passed overwhelmingly. So that's the motion that we're sharing is what was passed. If anyone wants to see how the motion was changed, that's also on the website. I didn't want to dig through, Word documents with red lines through them and additions and amendments and whatever else. I don't have time to do all that. However, what I'm commenting on is the final version. And some of the commenters were saying, well, maybe this is what the Holy Spirit wanted us to say more, or to say it better, to say it more clearly, to remove any language that might have been subversively critical of anyone that might have been in that motion, and to have an authentic statement about the equal dignity of women and men in the church. So,
definitely.
All right. So that's kind of the story, Lino. I'll just go through. I'll go through some things that it says in here, and then maybe we'll just comment on it a little bit together. So it goes on to say that Scripture calls the church to recognize the equal dignity of men and women and to esteem their contributions. It says, so throughout history, the church has looked to, for example, Mary, the Mother of God, as the model for Christian discipleship. Pope Paul VI spoke of the hour of women at the Second Vatican Council in December 1965. Or maybe not at the second. Yes, it was the Second Vatican Council. Good. And he recognized the unique contribution that women make to the life of society and the church. Also, this has been true of Catholic church history in Australia. We all know our first Australian saint, the amazing Mary of the Cross MacKillop, a beautiful, just an amazing, amazing person, woman of faith who's so inspiring. I love her and her story. So I could just heap lots of praise on her. We actually did an episode on her. I think myself and Jared did a bit of a bio on her very, very early on. So scroll back if you want to find it. Others mentioned were Eileen O'Connor and Mary Glowry. Now, and Caroline Chisholm, by the way, as well. And I'd love to do some work on all of these and talk about them in future episodes. But Mary Glowry, just very quickly, she is, at the moment, the next person who is likely to be canonized as a saint in the Australian Catholic Church. So her cause has been raised with the Vatican, is being explored. But Mary Glowry, she grew up in I think she was born in the sort of like the 1800s, late 1800s. I hope I'm getting this right. No, or maybe the 1900s. But she became she became a doctor basically. And again, we'll do more in depth on this later on. And while she was a doctor, she also discerned a vocation and became a nun. And she went to India and spent the rest of her life as a doctor in India and set up basically the Catholic health system in India. And millions and millions of Indian people, because of her legacy, have received healthcare, which is amazing.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay,
I would love to see
good.
Mary Glowry, Australian saint at some point. Just an amazing, I'd say she's akin to Mother Teresa, like the Australian Mother Teresa. Maybe that's a big call, but I think she's an amazing human being.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, and we will say more about that, but she put her faith into action in a way that not many people will get to do in such an amazing way. It goes on to say that in his letter to women, Pope John Paul II apologized for harm caused to women as he calls us to ensure the dignity and rights of women are protected and upheld, as well as recognizing the unique gifts they contribute to building up a healthy church and society. So in particular, he called us to work to overcome the cultural assumptions of inequality. So that's what I was saying before, that assumption of inequality, that a woman's baptism is not as is not equal to a man's. All right. So now he doesn't use that language. His language is much better than mine.
A bit more diplomatic. Diplomatic.
Just clearer. But an important thing for us to remember anyway. And so from the beginning of the 20th century, a growing awareness of the equal dignity of women and men has reshaped Australian social and political life. Nonetheless, disregard for the equal dignity of women and men persists in society and in the church. There is still much to be done. So I don't think anything I said earlier on in this segment goes against what's here. I think the same perception has been spoken about there too. So it says the Plenary Council has heard from women of varied experiences in the church today. Some women are joyful, happy, and thriving in their service to Christ and the church. Other times, women experience barriers and a lack of support in seeking to offer their gifts in service of the gospel, which has caused frustration and disappointment. Authentic witness to the equal dignity of women and men requires addressing issues of power, authority, and the freedom of persons to decide and act on their decision with informed consciences. So we need to deepen our understanding of the human person. It says this will require scriptural and theological formation, catechesis, ... right from the top of the church all the way down to the bottom. It's basically saying. So in light of the above and aware of the extent of ongoing challenges, the Plenary Council commits the church in Australia to acting in ways that witness clearly to the equal dignity of women and men with their diverse gifts and experiences. It commits the church to enhancing the role of women in the church and overcoming assumptions, culture, practices, and language that lead to inequality. So that's before we go into the decrees that were passed with this motion. Lino, are there any thoughts that you have so far on any of the content of this document or your own perceptions in the church as well?
Look. Equality within the church is very important. Not only in church but everywhere. Everywhere in the world. In your workplace, in majority of the world, men and women have always worked together throughout the ages. Look, Adam and Eve, for us, they've worked together. Everyone works together, and I know there's what you were saying, Lindsay. Maybe cultural differences and things happening in the background, but at the end of the day, men and women always work together and have to work together to make things happen. Our marriages. There you go. There's a very big example of that. Of working together. Yeah. Even though there's a lot of pressures and things going on, men and women have always worked together. And for a purpose, and majority of the time has been a blessing, within the church. I think I can't. I'm just confused why this has to happen to recognize women in the church. I don't know, Lindsay. Maybe it wasn't really brought up a lot or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right in that sense. The question, why are we having this conversation? Why are we still having this conversation? Some might say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. I think women in the church and men in the both of them are very, very important. That in the church, in our Catholic faith.
Yes, the contributions of both are essential, aren't they? The contributions of both are essential.
Definitely. And changes will happen, and some of them will be, people will, like you say, won't like it. Some will. Yeah. That's how we are as human beings. But recognizing this and doing and reading about this and doing this, it's going to be great.
Yes,
I totally agree that the equality of women and men in our Catholic Church is very important.
Yep.
And the examples of Mary and Bricilla, I'm not 100% sure about the Aline and Connor. I know if this is the first time I even knew about Mary McGlary. Sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, that's all right. No, I mean, these are names that we don't hear all the time, and depending on what circles you're in. So, and these are names that we should hear more about too. Caroline Chisholm as well. All those names.
Yeah, Chisholm. Yeah. Is our TAFE Chisholm, or is that?
I don't know if that's related or not.
Related?
Actually, I have to find out. Yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud. That's all.
I don't know if they're related. Yeah. But Caroline Chisholm, I know a little bit about. She helped women who came off ships to Australia, awesome. to not let them be taken advantage of and things like that. So again, another important person. She was on the $5 note, the old paper $5 note. She made it. That's how important she was. She made it to the $5 note.
That's why.
Caroline Chisholm.
Oh my goodness me.
That's the Chisholm you might be thinking of. Yeah.
That's why it's so bad at the moment, because we use our phones and everything.
It's when we had paper money.
Paper money.
Yeah, remember we had paper money. Yeah. But she was on the $5 note.
So gone.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't use that much anymore, do we?
Yeah.
I can't find. I don't know if we carry change anymore.
I don't know if an old $5 note anymore. Just
Me neither. I think it's all. I mean, it should be somewhere. Yeah, we got millions and millions of them were made.
Yeah.
But wow. Okay, I understand.
By the way, I just googled as well. I think Chisholm TAFE does actually bear a connection to Caroline Chisholm. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And I'm looking at the $5 note right now. Right.
Cool.
I don't have one.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. All right. But obviously,
nice.
And look, where the church empowers the equal contribution of men and women without stifling their gifts, we have a church that looks like Christ. That's the key thing, and that's where these amazing heroes, and also let's keep in mind, you were talking about marriage before, right? I was thinking about this in a marriage, if you get into a Catholic marriage for the right reasons, so I'm going to use my words carefully here. If you get into a Catholic marriage for the right reasons, the husband and wife work out together in partnership how this is going to work.
Exactly.
Who needs to do what? Not, and I don't mean like who needs to do the dishes and who needs to clean the house. I mean like, they work out that it's more like where do I need to step up? Where do I need to step up? What is it that I need to provide for my family? And that could mean that both are employed or one are employed or whatever it might be.
True.
So I think a Catholic marriage calls us to say that our union is also a union with God, and therefore we need to make this thing as Christ-like as we possibly can. Where do I need to step up so that I can do that? And it's got nothing to do with dividing the chores, and things like that. Every good marriage will decide for themselves where they need to step up. And how we're going to come together, like you said before, in financial hardship or in a health situation or whatever it might be, where am I going to step up? And I would apply that to the church to say, same thing. The church can create a space where women and men can say, where does my baptism tell me I need to step up in the church? Am I being called to preach? Am I being called to work in healthcare? Like Mary Glary. Am I being called to? What is my vocation? Is my vocation to be married? Is it to be single? Is it to enter religious life? So creating that space for people to discern that, I think, is really important.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the decree finishes or decrees the following things. So it says, Article 1, that the Plenary Council commits the Church in Australia to ensuring, through formal policies and intentional practice, the experiences and perspectives of women, including women who exercise ministry, are heard, considered, and valued at local, diocesan, and national levels. This is particularly important for matters which affect them distinctively. So it's not just the idea that, women have jobs in the church. And again, there are women in very high roles, and that's a really good thing. But the additional point being made here is that the distinct lives of women is taken into account in decision making for the church as well. That perspective is heard, and that's fair enough.
Exactly. Their voices that need to be heard.
And because you want to hear the distinct voice of everyone in the church, the distinct voice of women, the distinct voice of different cultures, the distinct voice of children, whatever it might be. You've got to take those distinct voices in order for the church to be able to evangelize appropriately. It says that women are appropriately represented in decision-making structures of the church, governance at the parish, diocese, or eparchy and national level, and in church agencies, entities, and organizations. I think that's fair enough. It makes sense, so we'll move on. That dioceses and eparchies recognize and value publicly and properly remunerate women who lead and serve in the church in various ways. So that's, remunerate means payment. The church has a whole tradition about fair work. Just read Rerum Novarum, people. There you go. About Pope Leo the 13th. You can look it up. But the idea of fair compensation for work. Then it says Article 2 here that each Australian diocese and eparchy commits to supporting, with appropriate formation and recognition, new opportunities for women to participate in ministries that engage with the most important aspects of diocesan and parish life, to which I give that a massive tick. Please. That's really good.
Definitely.
Yes. So I had this conversation with our previous parish priest, Father Michael Peapilli. We were having conversation at a meeting, and because I'd brought up the topic of women having their feet washed. We've had this conversation in a podcast before. Because Pope Francis has said we can do it, and there was umming and ahhing on both of different perspectives as we discern this in this meeting, and fair enough. And our parish priest, Father Michael, said something that was really interesting. He said, when a young girl comes into the church, or a young woman, or even a lady comes into the church and says, "I want to do something," do they see a woman already doing something that they could follow? Or, I mean, go with a typical cliche. What do we see women doing in our churches? We see them cleaning, we see sacristans, we see them setting things up, and that's vital. But do we see them front and center in other ministries as well? And some people who are listening will say, yes, we do. My parish, we do this. And I love that. It's great. And I think what we need to do is ensure that those opportunities, that the young girl sees, a woman in her church doing something that she could say, yes, I want to serve God that way as well. That these opportunities are there for them to see people serving God uniquely and distinctly, man or woman, and saying, I want to do that. And not just relegating people to, roles of servitude, like being the cleaner or being the, or being the sacristan or whatever. These are important roles. That important people roles, who do that, I mean, their contribution is so important. But not to just box people in and say, this is all there ever will be for you in the church.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Go on.
No, you're good.
Okay. Yep. I thought you were ready for a profound thought there. All right. So, all right. So moving on, the next article says that the Plenary Council commits the Church in Australia to implementing more fully the undertakings made by the Australian Catholic Bishop Conference in their social justice statement, Woman and Man, the Bishops Respond in 2000. And in response to the research report, Woman and Man, One in Jesus Christ from 1999. Now, I have to admit, I haven't seen these. In my defense, I just came out of high school in the year 2000, so I didn't know these existed. However, I plan to look these up and do a bit more reading on these. Maybe after I finish my 7,000 word essay in November. We'll see. It's on my list.
You got another one there. Sorry.
Last
one.
Last one.
I think you say you had like 1,000. Yep. You finished that one? The
1,000 words. I'm working on that. Well, not as we speak, but currently, yes. About to submit it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All good.
Yeah.
All good. Okay.
Life is great.
Sorry, man. Yeah.
I'll have a cry about these on a future podcast. Don't worry.
Okay.
And then lastly, Article 4, that should the universal law of the church be modified to authorize the diaconate for women, the Plenary Council recommends that the Australian bishops examine how best to implement it in the context of the church in Australia. So essentially, this is talking about Pope Francis did set up a committee to explore a female diaconate. And basically what they're saying here is if the universal law of the church does make findings that a female diaconate should happen, should be part of our experience of church, that the Australian church look at the best way to implement it for everyone else as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. So that's a fair point. What is it? So there are arguments now. I haven't examined enough, but there are arguments, for example, that there was, I think her name was Phoebe in the New Testament, who was a female deacon. So there was a diaconate for women in the early church. There's back and forth about if it serves the same role today as it would have then. I'll let people who are smarter than me talk about it. But I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing to have a female diaconate in the church. Again, if the Spirit is calling us to recognize the gifts of women and this is an expression of their gifts, then I'm sure smarter heads than me will prevail and work out the best way to implement that. There's been a bit of wrangling in the church about whether it should happen or not. I think if we put aside the arguments, the political arguments and the cultural arguments that people have about women and look at this purely from a perspective of this is about service in the church, then I think we're in a more authentic place to talk about it than to inject all the political rhetoric that sometimes gets into things like this. So, Lino, any final thoughts on the equal dignity of men and women in the church?
No, it's good. We're working upon it. Like I said before, I was a bit surprised that we actually there were discussions about it. About the equality of men and women in church and the differences. But look, the subject probably popped up, and then I was part of the Plenary Council and had to be addressed. That I understand, but I'm just surprised that that's there. You know what I mean, Lindsay? It's but now it's there and they're working on it. I just hope. I think I see a lot of men and women working together in our churches. Mm-hmm. In our masses and everything we do now. I'm slowly seeing that happen. More often, and I'm not going to start other topics about equality about men and women because I could once again. Well, I don't think I blew up the Discord when we were talking about something else. But anyway,
no.
Yeah, I don't want to discuss other stuff about that. But yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see with that, and I hope. Look, let's think positively and
yes.
and hope and pray, and also work with this that men and women will work together and always will.
Yes. Yeah.
I can't see. If this not happening. Yeah.
If all of us as men and women in the church listen to the call of our baptism, listen to the Spirit moving us, then we can't go wrong with this. And I think my final thought on this is it's better the conversation is happening about this than not.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see where it takes us.
Yeah. We'll be good.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. And by the way, thank you to all the men and women in the church, however you serve.
Definitely.
However you serve the church. If your service is as simple as, men and women raising a family, thank you so much for that. Or whether it's higher up, or whether it's in between any of those, whatever you do in the church, thank you so much that I'm able to enjoy church because of you. And when I say enjoy, I mean able to reap the benefits of the church because of you, because of those men and women who came before us, and those men and women who are going to carry the church forward after we're dust in the ground. That's that. I think that equal partnership is so important. So thank you all today, everyone in the church, for your service. Keep it up. Keep going. Yeah, God be with us all. All right. So
that's right.
Now we're going to move from number 4 to number 6. All right, so just like the Star Trek movies, the even number ones are the good ones. No, I'm kidding. No, but we're Oh, by the way, we did do number 5 last episode. Yeah.
Okay.
And as an anecdote, by the way, Star Trek 5 we know was like terrible. Was the worst of the Star Trek films. Just putting that out there. Yeah.
I don't know about it. It was really different, really different.
Yeah, The Search for God. That's what it's called sometimes. But anyway, it was terrible. Moving on. We don't want to bring this podcast down by talking about Star Trek 5. So, all right. So the sixth decree, I won't spend as much time on this one as number 4. However, I think there are some links in number 4 to number 6 which are important to talk about as well. This one is about formation and leadership for mission and ministry. And essentially, I mean, the title itself is enough to tell us what this is going to be about and why it's so important. The importance of formation of all of us and also of our leaders as well. The continued formation of everyone who has a role in the church, of men and women. It's such an important thing for us to continue on with. So Pope Francis observed that what we're experiencing is not simply an epoch of changes, but an epochal change. It entails decisions that rapidly transform our ways of living, of relating to one another, of communicating and thinking, of how different generations relate to one another, and how we can understand the experience of faith and science. So essentially, I mean, society is changing rapidly.
Definitely.
Rapidly,
changing.
Right?
It is, yeah.
So this context calls for a reassessment of the church's models of formation for leadership at all levels to ensure that they address the needs of the people of God, promote the mission of evangelization, and strengthen the witness of all the baptized through personal and communal conversion. So the formation of anyone who's in a role, whatever that role might be, is really important. You don't just take on a role because you think you know what to do. As you take on the role, you're either formed before or formed while you're carrying that role out in evangelization. Because the one thing that we all hate is that we are doing God's work, but then we suddenly realize that we've been doing it wrong this whole time. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Or you look back on years of doing something and think, I could have done that better. You know, so what I'm getting at,
is there somewhere I could change what I just did? Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So I guess the key thing is for anyone who's in a role, myself included. So I'm a leader, I'm not the leader. I have a leadership role in my school. My school's a Catholic school, therefore it's doing the mission of the church and whatever. The first thing for me and anyone in that position to remember is it's not about you. You don't have all the answers. These are the things to remember. It's
even
though
you try your best at times. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And you can't do it all on your own. All right?
Yes.
It's not about you. You don't have all the answers. You can't do it all on your own. Now that sounds really negative, right? To start with.
Oh no.
What's the point?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense. Makes sense.
But if that's the case, rely on God. And how do we rely on God? By knowing, loving, and serving. And that knowing part is one third of the essential part of good leadership, good formation. And when I say knowing, then it means, formation can be in all kinds of ways. It can be being immersed in an experience, immersion, that is being with the people that you're serving and learning their culture, learning the way that they work, learning the way that they do things. That could be with young people in the youth ministry. It could be serving overseas in a mission somewhere. It could be evangelizing in a parish, a priest moves to a parish that's not in a place that they're familiar with. So being immersed with the people, things like that. It's also about education. So that, for example, when you talk about scripture, you don't just make it up. I think God means this. All right, that's great. But if you think God means that, please go into the context a little bit more as well. I've seen scripture used really well. Yeah. I've seen it used very poorly as well. And scripture,
yes.
and look, by well-meaning people. So I'm not criticizing people, right? However, scripture used very poorly can actually be dangerous. It can be very bad, or it can weaken God's ability, our ability to hear God in scripture. So, like, for example, this is just a quick one, right? The good old Good Samaritan, right? How many times did we hear it in school, The Good Samaritan.
So many times. But it's
so many
great
times.
Story.
It's a great
story.
Sorry,
not story. So sorry.
Yeah, it's a great parable.
Parable.
However, the majority of people, I think, at least in our generation, the Good Samaritan is a story about being nice to other people, and that is not what the story is about. It's not about that at all. It's a wake up call. It's a challenge, right? So there are things like the idea that it's a Jewish person gets beaten up and robbed, and I'm skimming the story very, very badly here, and is ignored by two Jewish people, all right, two Jewish leaders who should have helped this person who was beaten up on the side of the road, but for the sake of ritual purity, they won't go anywhere near him. All right, they can't touch blood. They're on their way to worship and whatever, and if they touch him or help him, they can't participate in worship anymore. So they put their ritual and worship over the help of a person who's lying in the dirt that was made in God's image. So that's the first thing. The second thing, the person who actually does help is a Samaritan, and Samaritans and Jews at the time hated each other's guts. There were arguments about access to God. Samaritans weren't allowed to go to the temple, so there are all these things like that. And can you imagine Jesus' audience of Jews being told, "Hey, a Samaritan helped someone, but those two Jewish people didn't"?
Wow,
I mean, that would be, you know what I mean? That's not how you win over a crowd, Jesus. You know what I mean?
I know, but he had to say it.
And the context of this was a person, a person was saying, "How do I keep all the commandments? Love God, love your neighbor." And the person says, "Jesus, who is my neighbor?" Look, your neighbor is even the person that you're not meant to like. All people are your neighbor. And what's even more challenging is there's like a sting in the tail of this, because Jesus said, "So who was the good one?" And they say the Samaritan. Jesus says, "You go and do the same. Be like the Samaritan." Yep. Can you imagine telling a Jewish audience, "Be like the Samaritan"? This is as provocative as it gets. You know what I mean? So it
makes sense. Yeah.
It's more than just be nice to people. It's a lot more than that. So anyway, formation. This is what I'm getting at, right? Understanding what whether it's scripture, whether it's church documents, whether it's what our baptism means, all of it, what the mission of the church is. Over the course of our life, it's really important for us to learn these things through experience, through listening, through our own private learning from time to time, listening to a great Catholic podcast like this one, whatever, but learning, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. We're average, we're mediocre. We're good.
We're doing well. We're doing well.
We could be worse.
We can be. We
not as bad as you think.
Could be.
Yeah.
So exactly.
Yeah. We're not bad, but we couldn't get anywhere. No, I'm kidding. Anyway. But the point I'm trying to get at is there are good voices we can listen to form our faith. So and listen to a variety of voices to help form that, and that's especially important in leadership. You couldn't have a leading role, whether it being a youth minister or whether it being a whatever, without continually, in some way, shape, or form, immersing yourself in your faith and learning more about your faith as you go. Yeah, because the more you learn about your faith, what are we trying to learn? It's not about becoming smarter. It's not about deepening our intellect or anything like that. Those things are all good. It's about learning more about the one who loved us first, Christ.
Exactly.
And learning to, despite our human frailty as much as we possibly can, to be more Christ-like. Mm-hmm. And if we can be more Christ-like, then Christ can be known by other people. That's the important thing there.
Exactly.
So just to roll on then very quickly, it talks about those contexts that I talked about. So the call for concrete action to address improvements in governance and leadership and formation for a wider range of ministries consistently emerged as an important priority of this council's deliberations. So the present moment is complex and requires a fundamental renewal of our missionary energies, as well as the scope and style of resources needed to respond to what God is asking for us at this time. I like the idea of renewing resources. A person is a resource, a document is a resource, but renewing these resources is really important. It says here, pastoral leadership requires being attentive to the voice of the Spirit within the church and beyond, and must cultivate commitment, mutuality, and synodality within the whole ecclesial community. Now, I'm just speed reading through some of this, all right? So it says much work has already been undertaken in the area of formation, including the publication of from the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference of Norms for the Formation of Permanent Deacons and Guidelines for the Ministry and Life of Permanent Deacons, a national resource for lay pastoral ministers, faithful stewards of God's grace from 2018, and Anointed and Sent, a great document, by the way, an Australian vision for Catholic youth ministry from 2014. So these are, yes, they're really important works. I'm glad that they exist. They've been very helpful. I haven't read all of them, but the ones I have are really important. New national guidelines for seminary formation have also been approved by the Australian Catholic bishops and is in the final stage of being confirmed by the Holy See. So a renewed focus for formation will prioritise formation of the domestic church by encouraging and accompanying parents, guardians and caregivers in their vocation as the primary and principal teachers of faith and recognising the crucial role of families as school of Christian formation. Now, Archbishop Comensoli has talked very much about the domestic church in his Patrick orations. We've spoken about that before. And this is an important thing, the formation that happens in the family. How does it happen? Does it happen? And what can we do in our families? So I think resources to help our families do formation of the married couple and of the children, and of the extended family, all of that is so important, and that excites me to think that more work will go into that going forward. So formation for families requires new and creative strategies that correspond to the rhythms of family life and provide accompaniment at all stages of the journey. Amen to that, I say. So in addressing these concerns for formation, it's important to consider and provide for both the needs of communities in this present time and the needs of the next generation. I was going to make a Star Trek joke. Particular attention is required to attend to the formation needs of regional and rural communities. Formation in faith and new forms of missionary discipleship lie at the heart of the Council's work of planning for the future. So I think all of those are really important points to make there, that addressing the wider context of Australian society and the Australian church, right from the formation of leaders, right into the formation of families as well. So formation of the whole church, where they're at, is really important. So therefore, to finish off, to meet the formation needs of the present and future, the Plenary Council commits to the diversity, I just skipped a line there, the Church in Australia to developing and committing a culture of lifelong faith formation that will ensure the diversity of Catholic communities explicitly recognised. Intercultural competency is encouraged, especially in relation to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and their spiritualities. The equal dignity of men and women is affirmed and demonstrated. That's number 4. We just talked about that. The renewal of faith formation within and for families in the context of the critical role that marriage, parenting, and caregiving plays as a school of formation is prioritised and strengthened. Amen to that, because Lino and I are both married people, so we agree with that a lot. The apostolate of the laity, along with new ecclesial realities, acting as leaven in the world, is promoted, encouraged, and supported. The hopes, spirituality, giftedness, energy, and modes of communication and connection of young people are identified, incorporated, and encouraged and celebrated. I'm totally on board with bringing young people into the church, forming them, absolutely. Exactly, and ongoing support and strategies for those who minister to young people. I could speak about that for a while, actually. I have a lot of opinions on this and on the support of youth ministers in our parish. Essentially to say that a lot of our youth ministers are volunteers. And I think we need to elevate them beyond volunteers to something more important. But that's a conversation for our parishes for another time. The rich variety of spiritual devotional traditions of the church are appreciated and celebrated, and synodal practices such as encounter, accompaniment, listening, dialogue, discernment, and collaboration are fostered and deepened. And I would say that last one, practices of encounter, accompaniment, all that whole list, I think that's rehumanizing human beings, the important thing. So understanding who we are as people so that we can understand God in our lives. So there's a whole lot of articles that were voted on, but I think we've gone through the important things. People can read this decree if they want to. We'll have a link in our show notes. It essentially talks about some of the things that the Australian Catholic bishops want to see happen from this and the Plenary Council. So it's really important. That includes, by the way, biblical formation, reaching out further to more institutions in the church and accessibility of these resources and so on. So, Lino, just any last thoughts on this document about formation and leadership for mission and ministry?
Yeah, it's good to we're discussing about that. Formation and leadership in the ministry. We need to keep on discussing about it and implementing it into our parishes. Is that including the our internal councils we have in our parishes as well, Lindsay?
The whole lot, yeah. Reviewing the whole lot, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, an effective parish council would you would assume want to have these things, these formation opportunities as part of their agenda. You know, that's an important thing too.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
Yep. So let's see how that goes. But I like the idea of there being more lifelong formation opportunities available. So, and the thing is, let's what's the most basic level? The Mass itself is formative. I want to talk about. In fact, the Mass itself is transformative in a lot of ways too.
Yes,
the Eucharist and the Word of God. These things are really important, and good homilies are formative because they unpack the gospel and make us and prepare us to receive the Eucharist with the gospel burning in our hearts. It's really important.
Exactly.
And beyond Mass, then what happens? What are the things outside of Mass that are also formative, so that we can continue in our daily lives to be missionary disciples in whatever our ministry, our families, or wider ministries might be.
Exactly.
There it is.
Exactly.
Would love to know your thoughts if you're listening. Let us know. Give us some help. Help us out. Tell us what you think. All right. So let's move on from that. That's the fourth and the sixth decree from the Australian Catholic Plenary Council. Really happy that they exist and that they've given us some inspiration to continue to consider our role in the church. But now, Lino, let's put on our brave hats and venture into the world of science.
What a fine day for science.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Can you reverse the polarity?
I'll do my best.
Science, 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 science. Science, 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 science. Yeah, I like science.
So today, Lino, now you found this article, didn't you?
I was just crazy. It was crazy. I was like, Caroline asked, what kind of science segments can we do? And I go, okay, I'll check it out. So as usual, people Google. I Google the word science, and I chose science.com, and came up with a couple of things, and then I saw this one, and I went, this will be interesting to talk about. Interesting.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I will not a groundbreaking thing that Caroline can totally find for you guys, for all your listeners. For us, I think it's something interesting to read.
There's I'm just warning everyone that there may be quite a few puns that come out of this, because this one is really this is food for thought, really, when you think about it.
Totally food for thought. Yep.
Yeah. So Lino, let's chew on this together, all right?
Totally chew.
Yep, and get some things out of it, because this this is from science.org, shared by Lino, and it says the headline is "Chewing burns more calories than you think, and may have shaped our evolution." So this is about, I like this. It's a study. To put a hard number on how much energy we use grinding our gums. So basically, what some scientists, kind of hypothesized the idea that, first of all, how much energy does chewing actually expend in the body? Does it use? And if that's the case, did chewing affect the evolution of the shape of the human face and of our gums, jawline, and the shape of our teeth as well? So, Lena, you ready to do a deep dive into this?
Oh no, we can try. We can try.
All right. I'm sure you've been salivating to start, so let's get into it.
Oh, definitely gonna give a hubba bubba and start chewing on this one. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So, it says the following: when it comes to ways to burn calories, few people think about chewing, but about 3% of the daily energy we burn comes from grinding gum, gristle, and other goodies. This is what a new study finds. And you may burn even a little bit more than 3% if you chew on salads and celery sticks. So that's the first point. Lena, how often do you chew on a piece of celery?
I can't remember the last time I did chew on a celery.
Yeah. I can safely say never. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
However, I do know that people like to eat celeries with dips and things like that.
Dips and stuff, and salads, definitely in salads.
Carrots, things,
carrots.
So anyway,
exactly.
Yeah. Now, this 3% of energy burning or calorie burning is far less, obviously, than walking or even the act of digesting. Our body uses more energy digesting than it does chewing. However, it may have been enough to reshape the faces of our distant ancestors. So there was a study which adds concrete data to this, And it shows that it sort of contributes to the debate over reasons the human jaw is so different from those of our distant ancestors. So, primates and so on, whose jaw lines are very different to the human jawline. Callum Ross, who works, who's an anatomist at the University of Chicago, wasn't part of this study, but did comment on it and said that this gives us numbers that we can start working with. By the way, this was a missed opportunity for him to say, this gives us numbers that we can chew on. But anyway, let's move on.
Yes, definitely.
I'm sorry, but you're in the limelight. You want to be remembered for something that would have been, that's a missed opportunity. I'm just saying. So scientists have hypothesized for a while that our jaw size, so the size of your jaw and the shape of our teeth evolved to make chewing more efficient. All right, so this theory has been running around. So our hominid ancestors, so early primates and so on, shifted their diet to easier to chew foods, and this is because they developed tools over time. So, for example, they developed technologies which could chop foods. So think of like early knives and stones and things like that. And even as more time went on, learned how to cook foods as well. So when you are able to chop food up, it doesn't take as long to chew it. When you're able to cook it, it makes it softer, so you don't spend as much time chewing either.
Exactly.
So basically, what it says here is that the chopping and the cooking reduce the time and effort spent on chewing then, so the jaw and tooth shape change with this and shrink compared to other primates. It doesn't need to be as big as it was before.
Exactly.
So that's the theory. That's the theory. So it says here, though, the data that's missing, though, is how much daily energy we expend on chewing. It's difficult to determine whether saving energy was also a factor in driving these evolutionary changes, says Adam van Kasteren, who's a biological anthropologist at the University of Manchester. So he did a test, all right, put it to the test, and here's the method they went with. They did a study where he and his colleagues put 21 men and women in a bubble-like helmet. Now, I can see a picture in front of me, right?
I can see it. When I saw this, I thought, is this some sort of science experiment for space?
It looks like an astronaut's almost, doesn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
To describe it, it's like a big plastic bubble, like a helmet. It's about probably 3 times the size of the head of the person that's in it. They're lying down on a bed. There's out of the helmet is like a plastic blanket that covers, around the edges, probably to contain and not let too much oxygen or CO2 leave. To be contained there. And then there are 2 hoses, one clear hose above the head and one clear hose sort of in proximity of the mouth. And he looks like an astronaut lying down almost. So this is the device that it looks almost like a 1-person cone of silence, which is probably the most useless thing you could ever create. But anyway.
Oh my goodness me.
Yeah. Yep. So this device measured the amount of oxygen they consumed and carbon dioxide that they expelled, exhaled. So the breathing in and breathing out of oxygen goes in, carbon dioxide comes out. That's how human respiration works. I hope I got that right, or human breathing at least. Anyway, so
breathe in, breathe out. Yep.
So the scientists gave the participants, and this is the part that I don't know. This is why I wouldn't want to participate. They gave the participants flavorless, odorless, calorie-free gum to chew for 15 minutes.
Oh my goodness me.
Yeah. So they had to lie there in a bubble, chewing on the most bland gum they could ever have. But there was a reason for this, right? There was a reason.
Yeah, definitely are.
So the gum had no odor, taste, or calories, so that it didn't trigger the digestive system, which also consumes energy. So they were trying to focus on the energy expelled just by the chewing motion. But if the digestive system activated or was triggered, then the data would have been off, because they would have been getting data from the energy expelled by digestion as well. So that's why they gave them something bland and boring. And I'm really hoping that they didn't put their chewing gum under the table when they were finished, because I hate that. I hate that so much. As a teacher, I hate that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, everyone, because this is disgusting. But the number of times I've moved a desk and felt something gooey under the desk, I have no words for how disgusting that is, how filthy it is. I'm just saying, all right? Just saying.
Aren't you meant to wear gloves, Linz, or no?
I'm not wearing gloves to teach. What's the point of, I don't need gloves to teach.
I know, but
Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So put your chewing gum in the bin, kids, all right? Yeah. Just saying, all right? Okay.
Ew,
Think of the teachers that have to move those tables. So moving on. So while chewing, the carbon dioxide levels in the volunteers' breath rose, which indicated their bodies were now working harder. So when the gum was soft, their metabolism rose an average of 10%, while when it was stiffer, it required 15% more energy than resting. So they said that's not huge, but it is significant because you are seeing a difference in the amount of energy the body is using, to chew. So, obviously stiffer chewing gum, when you put chewing gum in your mouth and it starts to stiff, you chew harder
very
and more often to soften it.
Chewing,
And once it softens, you don't chew as vigorously
hard
as you were before. Exactly.
Yeah.
So in these tests, the chewing gum represented less than 1% of participants' daily energy budgets. All right. So, and now the 3% comes from, chewing throughout the day, different meals and whatever. This was less than 1% because it was 15 minutes of chewing a boring brand of chewing gum.
15 minutes of chewing a boring Oh, wow.
Boredom doesn't freshen your breath. In fact, it doesn't do anything.
Do anything.
Boredom gum.
Boredom gum.
Don't buy it. And definitely don't leave it under a table. Yes. So basically, the chewing gum in a lab was essentially, however, a proof of the concept that they were going for. So there was some data in it. So before the advent of cooking and tool use, early humans probably spent a lot more time chewing. So if ancient people had spent as much time chewing gum as gorillas and orangutans do now, then the authors estimate that they could have used at least 2.5% of their energy budget chewing. So it says here, if you were eating harder foods and chewing longer, you'd end up with a far larger proportion of the total energy expenditure. So So at the moment, one scientist here, Henry, he's a bit more skeptical. That they were skeptical, but said of this study, I think it's a great study. It shows that there is a measurable energy amount of energy used. So I think some scientists were surprised that there was actually something going on with the chewing action. So these findings support the idea that more efficient chewing tailored to diet might have been an evolutionary advantage. So it says here, by saving energy in the chewing category, you may have more energy to spend on other things like rest, recovery, and growth.
Yeah.
So this could now reveal, could give us a glimpse into human evolution and also the evolution of other hominids. For example, and here we go, Australopithecus. I actually did practice this before the podcast. Australopithecus. All right, was a hominid.
I can't. Yeah.
All right, early primate that lived in Africa between 2 and 4 million years ago. They had teeth with chewing surfaces 4 times larger than human beings and massive jaw muscles.
I can imagine that.
Yeah, and again, because they're not chopping or cooking food. So it says here they had to spend more time and energy chewing, on food in order to digest it. So it says here, Henry says here, they were presumably taking advantage of very energetically costly food. We have the first piece of evidence to explain that pattern. So, that there was one other thing I wanted to mention here. So compared with Australopithecus, this is why we need Caroline because she can say these, or primates living today, humans are an outlier. So we're actually unique in this sense though, because it says here, we most likely, on average, spend 7 minutes a day chewing. So
7
breakfast,
minutes?
Yeah, on average.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. That is true on average,
Yeah, so that means some people spend more and some people might spend less, but the average, so that's in a whole day. That's all the meals that you eat. So just 7 minutes a day chewing.
Okay.
However, by contrast, mountain gorillas can spend 90% of their waking time chewing. Okay, and which is on par with goats and cows. Yeah, they spend most of their active day chewing. All right. Which, by the way, sounds like a great life. I would love to just stand in a field and chew on some grass all day.
Chew on some grass all day.
Enjoy the weather. Go to sleep. Wake up. Repeat. Yep. Yep. I'm kidding.
I have to worry about a lot of.
Less worries. Look, at least cows don't, put their chewed grass under a table. I mean, they're more, more sophisticated than some people I know. All right. So anyway, so it says here to finish off, Van Kasteren, who did the experiment, says modern humans are the weird ones. we have really soft foods.
We're the weird ones. Okay,
we're the weird
sorry.
ones because
Sorry.
because we consume much softer foods. And so we
well,
have
that's
low
true,
chewing
isn't it?
times. Yeah, our meal times are reduced
Yeah.
because a lot of our food is generally softer. So reducing the amount of energy you're spending on chewing is another element to these milestones in human evolution or in agriculture, where you're selecting foods that are less fibrous or chewy. And if you think about it, it's interesting because there are people, for example, who are on liquid diets or have more liquid in their diets. So they're chewing even less, they're just swallowing, to be honest. Yeah. So I think it's just interesting that they were able to measure that maybe the human being, on estimate, burns about 3% of their 3% of the calories you burn in a day are just from the action of chewing. And this might have an answer to why human beings' jawlines, the shape of our face and the size of our teeth and the set of our teeth are different to other primates that exist today, and how we evolved from the earlier hominids into what we are today. So
that sort of makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a lot to chew on in this article. Yeah.
Definitely to chew on, man. A lot to chew on.
There we are. So that's it. That's just a bite-sized piece of knowledge for you today.
Very bite-sized. Fun size.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fun size. Yeah. All right. So anyway, before we turn people off, we'll stop there. So we'd love to know your thoughts. Yeah. Ever considered how much energy you're expending when you're chewing? How often do you think you chew per day? That's what I'd like to ask our listeners. How often do you chew?
That'd be interesting.
Are you chewing? How much of the day in minutes do you spend chewing? Yeah. Although I've got to say, in kids, it takes longer. My goodness, at the dinner table.
Oh my
half
goodness,
an hour.
man,
It's
Lindsay.
like, come
Yes,
on,
I see
come on,
that.
chew faster. Oh man, what's going on, kids?
Yeah, I wonder if we were like that. I can imagine we were like
Probably,
that. I don't want to chew you to this.
Yeah.
You keep on chewing, keep eating.
Yes, you're eating it, whether you like it or not.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, chewing. Yeah, I think you see it a lot in sport. Like I watch my sport. I'll see a lot of guys chewing. It's either
chewing
basketball,
gum,
maybe chewing gum. Chewing gum is more. I think a lot more popular than, of course, chewing anything else. I don't know. I could be wrong. If you're not eating, just chewing gum. And
beef jerky.
I try. Exactly.
Beef jerky,
I try to get to get into my habit of chewing gum after a meal. You see that ad with the chewing gum,
So it generates saliva, cleans your teeth. I've heard. Yeah,
cleans
yes.
your teeth.
Yeah.
And I used to do that a lot. I think I sort of stopped because if you read on the packet, there's something about a laxative effect. But anyway, that's strange.
Okay, yeah.
You gotta be careful.
That's a disincentive to chew too often. Yeah, with chewing gum.
Just to be careful, guys.
Yes.
Yeah. And
everything in moderation.
Exactly. And we'll talk about it at the start. I'm going to get my Hubba Bubba out. I bought some Hubba Bubba when we were out before. Brought me back to my childhood days. It's big, it's chunky. You're eating these.
Blow some bubbles.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think my jaw's getting so tight.
Yes.
I can't believe how I did this when I was young, but we had younger jaws back in those days. Yeah.
True.
Trying to chew this thing, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah. All right. So, something for you to think about. Think about your jaws, people, all right, when you're chewing today. All right, well, let's move on and let's talk about entertainment.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
This is not what we came here to do.
No, but it's what I'm going to do.
I have a plan. You've got a plan. I have part of a plan. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
So, Lino, we've got a couple of things. Now, I was excited to talk about this one. There's a bit of context.
Okay.
My family came to your house last weekend. Came for dinner, by the way. Great dinner, by the way.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time because
chewing on some lamb was great.
Oh, chewing. I hope it wasn't too chewy.
That was great. No, it was great. It was just right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the Tim Tams, by the way. You guys remembered. I appreciate that.
Definitely. Well, I totally forgot. Better than remember to wait. Oh no, yes, the Tim Tams.
I've given you to a complex that whenever I come over now, where are the Tim Tams? Yeah.
It's all good.
What kind of a guest am I? Anyway, However, part of our evening and hanging out together was to sit down and play this awesome board game called Hero Quest. So, So Lino, tell us a little bit about Hero Quest. What is it and why is it so much fun?
Hero Quest brings back my childhood days. This was a game back in the 90s. So my brother and I used to play this constantly, and it was very popular. What was it, Lindsay? 90s was it was Hero Quest or Dungeons and Dragons. Not Nerf. Oh yeah, Super Soakers. Super Soakers were big. So it sort of brought back that sort of childhood memories back in those days. Chewing gum. Chewing gum. Yep, different chewing gums, different flavors. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna grab one right now. So yeah, it was basically it's a they call it a dungeon crawling game where one player plays the evil wizard, and it's and it's whenever players move their miniatures, figurines or miniatures. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Figurines around, the board actually comes to life, as in your door comes, certain monsters come across, and it's visual and it makes it interesting. I know there's other games that could do that, and I think this is where it sort of came. I think you could say it's the grandfather of it, but anyway, of all of them, of visualizing where you are and what you're doing. So and I think Dungeons and Dragons did the same. If you wanted to go to that path. But it was great. Well, it was so much fun. I will never forget, Lindsay, poor Damien. We were playing it the first time, and he was a bit concerned about the poor Chaos Warriors. But I think I painted them too bad. Make him so evil. So I thought I'll next time maybe I'll paint them. Maybe not. I'll leave them aside. But we'll see how we go. But I'll leave. Yeah, I think he's much more grown up, and he's a great. Oh, he's a great godson. Well, one of our great godsons. Yes. Well, one of our great godsons.
And this was the cool thing, actually. So there were 5 of us in the house that evening. So Alexander was off playing trains, and then he'd come in and roll dice for us every now and then. He's my 4-year-old. Awesome. But it was good because there was you, your wife Bernadette, my wife Isabel, and then Damien, who's 13 years old, and we all got to play together. And I loved that this board game actually brought us together. That was actually a lot of fun, And
yes, it was.
So what was it? So you played the role. This time you took the role of like the dungeon master or the evil wizard, and your job was to work against us to try and defeat us. And then each of us picked one of the 4 available characters. And you've got your good old, what was it? You got the dwarf,
barbarian,
the barbarian,
the dwarf,
the mage and the elf. So the good old, typical,
typical,
characters. And then basically you set the conditions of what the mission is, and then we have to complete the mission. Whether it's rescuing the knight or or finding the treasure or whatever it might be.
Treasure it was.
And what's cool is, like you said, you roll the dice, you move into a corridor, you go to a doorway, and once you do that, it will trigger something. So monsters will appear on the board, or or you might find a secret room or things like that. And it's really cool because you get to then you have to like work it out as a team, and we're all like in a funny way, we're yelling at each other, but in a really funny way, like not in a mean way, but like it's like you did this, cast a spell and whatever. Oh, by the way, I should mention, so I had a mage, I was the magician, right? So I had 9 spells. So my name was Caster Spell. There you are. You're welcome.
Wait a minute, was it Caster Dangerous Spell?
Oh yeah, so then I made Danger, and then I said Danger was my middle name, so then I became Caster Danger Spell. Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Danger's my middle name.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
We were doing well, man.
Yeah.
The mage can have a lot of strong spells.
Yeah, and I felt like a bit of a coward at one point when I got hit by a monster and my health went down to 1. By the way, the mage, in my defense, the mage doesn't have much health to start with, right?
No,
they're meant to stay at the back. They're the weakest.
Exactly.
But I did get hit by a monster. And I had a spell that would let me.
Yeah,
it was. And I had a spell that would let me go through a wall. So I was like, bye guys. And I went through the wall and left you guys to fight the monsters. I let the others. Whoops. Sorry.
This is a quick one for all the listeners. The one we play now is a new edition.
Yep.
So the one back in the 90s, you can still buy them in eBay or wherever you can try to find them. That's all good. This one here is a new edition. So the only difference is there was a company called Games Workshop who made the first ones. Now everyone will know the word Games Workshop from the Warhammer. So Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, all the Warhammers and everything they've done. So they apparently Hasbro, yes, that Hasbro, who have made a lot of toys back in the days, and they were big. They were big in the 90s. So you can imagine, what was that, Lindsay? Was it Transformers?
Mm-hmm.
Hasbro owned a lot of franchises for the kids. He-Man. Yeah, He-Man. So a
She-Ra.
lot of She-Ra. Yep. All the classics, toys back in the 90s, and of course today. They do very well today. So Hasbro took the license from Games Workshop and made the game again. But the great thing is they haven't changed too much.
Yeah, they haven't. They haven't ruined it. Yeah,
ruined it. Like you got to roll extra dice for this, or this person's got extra this and this, and that's sort of my gripe with newer games when they come out. They have to change things. They go, not really, you don't. Just keep it as simple as it is. The only thing they had to change was some monsters. Like I was saying, Paul, Damien wasn't so. Oh, of course, he's older now. Come on, he's more confident in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wasn't so scary. So they just have to change one of the monsters from a Chaos Warrior, which is how do you say it, Lindsay? Patented. Or
patented,
patented to
Warhammer,
Games, Warhammer to Games Workshop. So they had to change this guy to what was the Dread Warrior?
Dread Warrior.
He looked mean and nasty in any sense. So they had to change a few little things in there. But besides that, the game's the same, and we had almost fun.
And
fun.
The good thing is, it's not hard to learn. So if you're just a casual board game player, I mean, you do need to make sure you have the right number of people to play. Although you can play on your own as well, I guess.
Yes, you can. Yeah,
but even then,
be interesting. Yeah,
take a bit longer. But even then, it's not that hard to learn, which is the good thing about it. Anyway.
Exactly, it's something sort of you can just pick up and just read the rules, and the person who's playing, like the DM, they'll hopefully do the research and read rules, but it's pretty straightforward.
You don't have to read chapters to understand it.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. You have to read codexes and all that stuff. So it's pretty straightforward, and it's great fun. It's great fun for people. It was and look, I say, it's visual. A lot of people, just on a side note, a lot of people are either what they call visually.
Yes,
they want to see something in front, or are very imaginative. People can still imagine in their mind. That's all cool with both sides. That's all cool. And this board game is a bit of both. It just shows you visually what's going on, and I like that. I like that. I like to see what's on the board. I've played D&D, but sometimes you just imagine, and people imagine different things. That's another game we could talk about later on.
We won't talk about how we played it, and my brother was a dwarf, and I threw the dwarf at the baddies because he lit a fire in a cave, and then we all lost a health point because of the smoke. But Lindsay,
you were trying to grab the coins from the poor fairy.
No, I was giving coins to the fairy because I thought she'd give us something, and then I lost all my money. So there you go. Yeah, these are the average, the beginner mistakes that a Dungeons and Dragons player might make. So.
It's not a mistake. Dungeons and Dragons is it's crazy. You can do anything you like.
All right, let's roll on. So Hero Quest. Anyway, we love it. We recommend it totally. It's a lot of fun, family fun, friend fun. Go ahead and do it.
It is. It is.
Now, this is last night for me, but at time of recording. But this will be like a week later now. But Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3. It started.
Nice. Yes. Okay, I'm going to check that out tonight.
A lot of fun. So I really enjoyed it. There's some great callbacks. I won't ruin it, but I won't spoil it. But there's as always, there's lots of callbacks and in jokes about from different series and movies and whatever.
Yes.
And I love it. Yes. But one thing I will mention from the episode is that it does feature the location, the Bozeman, where First Contact happened. In your Star Trek First Contact. All I'll say is it features that, and 1 million points to whoever put the soundtrack together for that. That's all I'll say. There's some great callbacks.
Okay.
I'll say nothing else. It was good.
Nice.
Now, Lino, I've been watching She-Hulk on Disney Plus. Have you?
I've heard about that.
Yeah,
I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now the episodes are shorter. Yeah, I've watched the first two.
Shorter.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, I think one was 38 minutes. They're in the 30s anyway.
Yeah. Good.
But it's establishing stuff. But I've actually, it's quite funny. It's quite entertaining. There was one joke in the first episode that I thought, this is like, I mean, do you want kids to watch this or not? Why was that in there?
Okay.
And it was at the end in the extra credits, so you could probably, if you're clued as a parent, you could just get your kid not to watch the extra credits of that episode. But I thought this is dumb. Why? Like, it doesn't. Yeah. Apparently that's humour to some people. I don't know. Anyway, but people know what I'm talking about, and you can work it out for yourselves. Otherwise, it was great. Very funny. Entertaining. Okay. I like the way that she became a Hulk, and the differences between her being a Hulk compared to the to Bruce Banner's Hulk. Bruce Banner's Hulk. He's in it the first episode as well. He's like a bit like a mentor character, so he's got a substantial role there. And he has a very interesting side story that's only hinted at very briefly in the first and second episode. So a
side story for the Hulk.
Yeah, for him. Yeah. So some interesting stuff going on there.
Okay. Okay.
I'm enjoying it so far. And there's a character I'm waiting for to turn up. I think I mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned this in our last podcast, but there's a character I'm waiting for. I won't spoil it.
Yes.
But it's kind of the reason I'm watching She-Hulk, to be honest, because I loved this character in the 3 seasons that he had on Netflix. And he's confirmed. He's in the trailers. He's going to be there, and I cannot wait. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting, She-Hulk is great. I love it. It's really good so far. And cool. Lino, you've been watching a cat documentary. This would be right up Caroline's alley. Tell us briefly about it. On Netflix?
Yes, in Netflix. I'll talk briefly about it because I like to have Caroline on this as well. So it's called Inside. Let me get this right. Inside the Mind of a Cat. Because last time I said in the mind of a cat. So anyway, Inside the Mind of the Cat, and it's a great doco. It's for the very first time. I must admit, this is probably a show I can actually promote to you guys, to the family.
Family friendly.
Actually, family friendly show. I can actually tell you guys to watch. Exactly, and it's a great show. It's not too sciencey or very technical and everything. It just explains people doing experiments of how the mind of a cat works, and it's not bad. Okay, it's not that kind of dark experiments anyway. Whatever.
Fun
it's
stuff,
pretty straightforward. It's fun stuff, and I totally highly recommend it to everyone to watch. So it's Inside the Mind of a Cat, and I only think it only goes for about an hour or so.
Okay,
an hour or so. So it's not too long.
I'll have to put it on my list to watch. It sounds interesting.
It's definitely Lindsay. If you can watch it with Isabel and the kids, and they'll love it. They'll totally love it.
Now you've got Lawrence and Cordell, your 2 cats there at home. Were they sitting in your laps when you were watching it? Were they going, "No, that's not true. That's insulting. That's not true."
Sort of. I think
that's rubbish. That's not true.
Don't quote me.
That's an insult to cats everywhere.
I do. I must admit, one time when the cats do that, meow, they really did pick up and go, okay, I'm going back down again. Anyway, they did a few times. I think at times, Bernadette was giving one of our boys a belly rub.
Belly rub,
so belly rub, and while we were watching it. But it's a great show. The doco really is inspirational to know what cats are like. And
good one.
When you do own a cat, like that, you do understand. Yep, that trait's right. Yep, that they do that. Okay, maybe not do that in case they do something silly. So it's a very, very good show. Yep.
Oh, good one. All right. Well, I'll have to put that on my list of things to watch later. I love that.
Definitely,
the idea of a cat documentary. Yeah. And I get to watch it without cats, so I won't have any biased commentary while I'm trying to watch it. It's rubbish.
Definitely.
There's more wisdom in my kitty litter, whatever. Cats don't do that, whatever. Now go and get me some milk. All right. So, all right. So thank you so much to all of you for listening to episode 83 of the Catholics of Oz today. And before we go, we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Catholics of Oz. And today we would love to thank Patricia M, William M, Nancy M, Father Matt B, and Donna P. Through their generous donations at sqpn.com/give, They make it possible for the Catholics of Oz and all of the other shows on StarQuest to continue. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, we'd love to know your thoughts and topics on the topics we've discussed today. We'd love to chew on it with you and see what you think. Sorry. You can send us feedback by visiting sqpn.com/Oz, spelt OZ, where you can find our show notes as well. You can also find us on Discord, sqpn.com/Discord. Sign up, join the conversations. We'd love to hear from more of you on the SQPN channel in there. In the Catholics of Oz channel. And the Let's Science channel. Please let us know your thoughts. We love the Let's Science contributions, by the way. There are some really interesting ones there. So thanks. And thank you for the ideas for future Let's Science episodes too. We will say a few things about those in the future as time goes on. So while you're on the SQPN website, you can also sign up for the Insiders Club newsletter and get updates about your favorite shows. sqpn.com/about/newsletter. And don't forget to find us on all the socials. Facebook, just search for SQPN. Search for the same. On Facebook, search for StarQuest Media. Although I think you can search for SQPN. Yes, you can. That on Twitter, SQPN, Instagram, SQPN. Do a search, find us, like us there, and find out about all the shows on this wonderful network. And don't forget that the Catholics of Oz has its own Facebook page, Catholics of Oz, facebook.com/Catholics of Oz. If you'd like to talk to us there, we'd love to hear from you. Or send us a good old email, catholics@sqpn.com. Lino, just to add this, I was thinking of snail mail when I thought of
snail mail.
Email. You remember
Wow.
snail mail? I literally I pulled out an envelope from my letterbox the other day, and I took a photo of it, and there was a snail on it. I had literal snail mail the other day. It was a real thing. It was a real thing. Yes.
Oh, poor snail.
And if Caroline was here, I'd pull up a good old. You know, remember Jim Owen, the Irish comedian? He had a show.
Yes.
He used to have the Jim Owen show, right? And he had this skit once where he was saying, I was doing a stand up, and he said, and I won't do his Irish accent for this part because I'd be terrible at it. But he said, I pulled out a letter from my letterbox, and there was a snail on it, and I looked at him and I said, and in his accent he goes, "Stupid." I said, "Lettuce." Not letters, like that. It was very funny. Yeah. It's a really dumb joke, but it was very funny. Anyway, Caroline knows what I'm talking about. We joke about it from time to time.
She will.
Yeah. So, Lino, thank you so much for being part of me with me for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
I have. And thank you for having me, Lindsay. And all your listeners, take care. God bless. And just contemplate and chew on the information you just received through your headphones.
Yes. We're going to get in trouble for talking about chewing too much.
I think we are.
Yeah.
I think we are.
All right. You know where to send your hate mail, don't worry.
Oh my gosh.
And once again, I'm Lindsay Sad, and thank you so much for listening to episode 83 of the Catholics of Oz on StarQuest.
StarQuest wants to hear from you. We're conducting a survey of our audience. That's you, to help us in our planning for the future. Please take a moment and visit sqpn.com/survey. We'll be selecting 2 participants to receive an Amazon gift card as an expression of our thanks. So visit sqpn.com/survey today.